All right, former Old Mutual CEO Peter Moyos' attempt to have Old Mutual non-executive directors declared in contempt of court for firing him has been dismissed by the Gauteng Local Division of the High Court. The court proceedings, which have been ongoing since 2019, where Old Mutual's decision to terminate Mr. Moyo's employment as the company's CEO has been found not to be a breach of contract. Now, the court did, however, find that Mr. Moyo had been guilty of breaching his fiduciary duties to Old Mutual. But Old Mutual says it is pleased to put this matter behind after 3 years of contentious litigation. For more, let's chat to Tabby Tsengiwe. She, of course, is the General Manager of Public Affairs and Sustainability at Old Mutual. Tabby, good to have you. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Leanne, and congratulations on your award once again.
Tabby, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. So let's take a look at this story. So it's been, as we say, a long road of court proceedings dating back to 2019. What has it all entailed? I mean, for people that haven't been following this case, perhaps we can start there. How did this all begin?
This began with the board terminating Mr. Moyo's contract because of a loss of confidence in him as CEO of the company, which at the time involved a conflict that arose, and the board terminated his employment contract as a result of that. Subsequent to that, Mr. Moyo decided to go to the courts, and indeed it was his right to do so, and we have been in court and out of court, and this case has really taken on a lot of iterations with various rulings, with various appeals, with even a case where there was the application brought by Old Mutual to recuse a judge in the matter because of how Mr. Moyo's legal team had included him in the case. It had various parts. Mr. Moyo also had put to the courts that he would like to say that the board is delinquent, and that the directors had acted in contempt of court, and that is the ruling that came through yesterday or 2 days ago. Within all of that, there have also been various appeals by Mr. Moyo and his legal team for him to be reinstated, Old Mutual appealing that, the court ruling in Old Mutual's favor. So all in all, yes, it has been a long 3 years. The case has taken various iterations, and we are at a point now as Old Mutual where the board does feel vindicated that it indeed acted lawfully in terminating Mr. Moyo's contract in the first place in 2019. Yeah. And this really marks a sixth victory for Old Mutual in a row in this specific case.
Well, I mean, as you say, this has been a long, protracted battle. It really has been. And what happened was that the court had found that Mr. Moyo had been guilty of breaching his fiduciary duties to Old Mutual. What happened there? I mean, what was that all about?
This was about the board itself, obviously saying that Mr. Moyo had acted in conflict of his contract, his employment contract to Old Mutual. And that is what that's about, yes. Yeah.
So has this position been filled, or have you been waiting to finalize this matter in the courts first?
Well, we were allowed, permitted by the court to continue doing business as Old Mutual. So the board proceeded to appoint a CEO, and there is a permanent CEO, Mr. Ian Williamson, who has been the CEO of Old Mutual for almost 2 years now.
In terms of the reaction, I mean, I do wish we had Mr. Moyo's team as well to perhaps speak at the same time, because we do need to get his version of events and their reaction to this ruling, because obviously this is just the one side of the story. There is another side. So perhaps, have you heard from Mr. Moyo's team? Was he present in court yesterday? Did they make any announcements or statements afterwards?
We have not heard from Mr. Moyo's team yet. We have not seen any statements that they have made to date. And no, there was no court appearance by his team, by Mr. Moyo. This judgment was handed down virtually because of the situation currently with COVID still being very much alive. So there was no appearance in court, physical appearance in court.
Okay, so it was a virtual ruling. Do you know if he intends to challenge this any further with a higher court. That's sort of the next step in this, if this is to continue, or are you convinced and satisfied that this is the end of the road?
Leanne, it would be very difficult for us to really opine on that. As I say, we have not heard anything back from Mr. Moyo's team. Of course, it is up to them if they would like to challenge this and take it further. But we are of the view that we honestly do not see another court ruling in a different manner. But we would obviously have to appear should Mr. Moyo decide to take that avenue.
Just to wrap this up and to perhaps make it more relevant to those that do business with Old Mutual, I mean, having something like this hanging over the company has obviously had a lot of challenges towards you and has cost the company a lot of money. I mean, talk to us about some of these challenges and how it's affected the business over this time.
Leanne, from the beginning of this litigation, the board and Old Mutual was of the opinion and of the view that it is not the avenue that they would have chosen, but it was Mr. Moyo who decided to take the board to court, and it was something that certainly we had hoped would not continue for as long as it has. But I must say that with the various victories over the 3 years, really proving that the board had acted lawfully and vindicating what we see as governance, we have been continuing with business as usual, and we certainly do hope that this specific judgment now really does conclude that, because this is certainly about governance being held up. This is about a board holding a CEO accountable in the event that he terminates, there is conflict of interest, and we are really hoping that this marks the end of it so that we can continue without having to continue appearing in court on litigation matters, because it does have an impact, whether psychologically or subconsciously, and it is an unpleasant situation, certainly for the organization. But as we say, this does really put a positive end to it for the directors, as well as Old Mutual, for us to continue business.
All right, Tabby, let's leave it there for this morning. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for talking to us from the Old Mutual point of view and the victory that they are certainly calling, and hopefully an end to a protracted battle between the former Old Mutual CEO, Peter Moyo, and the non-executive directors, the Old Mutual non-executive directors. That was Tabby Tsengiwe, who is the General Manager of Public Affairs and Sustainability at Old Mutual.